The question of our time, what does it mean to be an American? That's a conversation I've been having with Vivek Ramaswamy. Last week, after months of coordination, we finally got to sit down with each other for an extended period of time and have this conversation to dive in. What do you mean? What is culture? What is identity? What does it mean to be an American? All right, I want to pick up national identity.
Sure.
You spoke about this at the MSG rally. It was back, the MSG rally was back in November, early November, I believe.
Yeah, it was like late October, early November, yeah.
And you said this then about the idea of national identity.
Sure.
We're in the middle of a national identity crisis. Faith in God, patriotism, hard work, family. These things have disappeared only to be replaced by wokeism and transgenderism, climatism, COVIDism, depression, anxiety, fentanyl, suicide. These are symptoms of a deeper void of purpose and meaning in our country. And right now, we need to step up and fill that void with our own vision. Answer, what does it mean to be an American?
So, Vivek, I mentioned you and I have been trying to get together for this conversation for what seems like a couple of months, and we've spoken offline together on several occasions. And this has been the topic of our ongoing conversation. Yeah. National identity. What does it mean, then, to be an American?
This is the question of our time. And we're a geographically expansive country with people of diverse religious backgrounds and ethnicities. I think it's worth occasionally stepping back and honestly asking the question, is there actually something that binds us together across these diverse attributes? Do we actually believe that exists? I actually do. I think it is an ethos, a creed that was codified in the Declaration of Independence, actualized in the U.S. Constitution. But it's not just the formalities of history. Even in today, the basic idea that no matter who you are, or where your parents came from, or what your skin color is, that you get ahead in this country with your own hard work and commitment and dedication, and that you're free to speak your mind at every step of the way. A nation that recognizes that every one of us has our own unique God-given gift, and that it's different and distinct from every other person in the world, but that we are the nation on God's green earth where you get to realize the maximum of those God-given gifts without anybody, not a government, not a bureaucracy standing in your way. That's the set of ideals that makes America itself. And that's different than pretty much every nation in human history. And I think that that's a beautiful thing, and there's some controversial layers to that if we're able to go beneath the layers of what makes America different than those other countries. But to me, that's what makes America itself, is that we're bound together by those set of human ideals.
Well, I think one of those layers that probably ignited the debate between you and I, to the extent that we had one, is America, is our identity exclusively centered around this idea of a creed. You know, Joe Biden used to often say that America is an idea. And for me, there are ideas behind America. But a creed and idea are abstract and can be redefined at any given time. And that takes us back to what is the identity of America. And I believe there are this is a people, and this is a place, and there is a culture that binds us that has to be fought for, to your point. But that culture is rooted in our history. It's rooted in our story. And that culture has to be more than just hard work and more than just a creed, that we have to understand the culture we're all a part of here.
Yeah. So
we're fish swimming in water.
I think I fully, you and I have talked about this. I fully agree with you that Biden's wrong to say America is just an idea. Of course, America is not just an idea. But America, what makes America distinctive versus other countries around the world is that we're still bound together by that set of ideals. That's what makes America unique from other countries, even though, of course, there's obviously the physical space and the people who comprise our country that make our country who we are as well.
And a culture.
And a culture, absolutely. But the thing that's different about America versus other countries, you or I could go to France and live there. We would never be a Frenchman. We could go to Germany. We would never be a German. Italy, and we'd never be an Italian. Japan, and we'd never be Japanese. We could go to China or India, and we'd never be Chinese or Indian, actually. But we could both be here, or people from every one of those countries could come here and still be an American. And we have to acknowledge that reality.
I think that's an incredible
so distinctive and unique to America. And so when there's discussion around culture, let's actually have the conversation about what entails that culture. Because I don't have a ton of patience for the intellectual laziness of just saying culture. What is that culture?
Because the question is, Vivek, you're right. Well, I can move to Italy. I can never become Italian.
You'll never be an Italian. Neither will I. And you'll never be a German or Japanese or Chinese either. And neither will I.
But your parents can move to America and become Americans.
Or your grandparents or your great-grandparents or whatever it was.
So what's the process then?
Yeah,
How do you become American?
And see, that's where I take a view that, I have some views that, let's just say, ignite some pushback on the right and left. I think that every high school senior who graduates from high school right here should have to pass, as a condition for graduation from high school, the same civics test required of every legal immigrant to this country. Because you can't love a country unless you really know the first thing about that country to start with. So should we require a foreigner who comes to this country to speak English, speak it fluently, know about the history of the country, know about our Constitution, know about our founding, know how many branches of government there are? You're darn right we should. I don't think you should be a foreigner able to come to this country if you can't assimilate into that culture grounded in those ideals. But we also have to retain and preserve a culture to assimilate into.
Yes.
And we're not heading the right direction, Will, if our own kids, 85% of kids who graduate from high school, can't answer those same questions that we demand of somebody who's coming from a foreign country here either. So I want to revive that culture that is the American culture, but in some ways that we've lost. And to those friends who we have a healthy dialogue, part of embedded in the idea of making America great again is a recognition that we have, for some amount of time, lost our way as a country, especially over the course of the last 4 years. When we talked earlier, you played that clip, wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, COVIDism, you name it. We have substituted that true American culture, which I do think is grounded in a culture of self-determination, in a culture of freedom of speech, in an open marketplace of ideas. Those are ideals that are distinctively American, that made America great. We've replaced those with these new fallen ideals. And so to everybody around this country who shares my view that we've gone too much to a participation trophy culture rather than a championship trophy culture.
And you think that's a divorce from what was originally the ideal American culture?
I think that's the essence of America's. We're founded on exceptionalism, right? You think about China's old culture under Mao. They had a victimhood culture. Part of what's happened is their victimhood culture over the last number of decades has come all the way here to become a victimhood culture in America. While our culture of excellence, in some ways, has leapt oceans to lift up other countries like China, where kids on average, let's just talk for hard facts on this for a second. A kid in China right now is 4 years ahead of a kid in the United States. That means a 7th grader here is performing at an equivalent standard to a 3rd grader in China. That's our top adversary. I'm sorry, that doesn't work for us here, Will. I'm not going to stand by and idly watch that. Now, I don't want to just be a commentator on this. I want to lead Ohio in a way that sets an example for the rest of the country to say we're going to give our kids that world-class education in every domain: math, reading, writing, physical education, civic education, financial literacy, you name it. But I do think that we have to, as we do any great nation in the times of its history and its evolution, has to at times say we're going to wake up and rise to the challenge ahead of us.
I do think it is the question of our time. What does it mean to be an American? I do think it's the question of our time is defining American culture. Vivek and I only began to scratch the surface of what I think is a very deep debate. I think it's more than exceptionalism, and I think it's more than achievement. I think we are the children. We're the inheritors of Western civilization. And Vivek and I continue that conversation offline. I'd like to continue it here with you as well, because we agree it is the question of our time. What does it mean to be an American?